The first dream came without warning. It began with a child's laughter, bright and brittle, then dissolved into a scream. Cities folded like paper, oceans boiled into glass, and 1,000 voices whispered in unison, "This is what you will become." By dawn, the embassy stood in the Sahara, a blade of alien alloy thrust into the earth, its surface rippling with stolen light. The Aetherii did not speak. They did not need to. Their nightmares spoke for them. Dr. Lysandra Kyr arrived on the third day, her boots caked in the dust of a dozen war zones. She'd seen guilt wear many masks. Soldiers, survivors, the hollow-eyed who whispered, "I should have died," in looped confessionals. But this was different. The Aetherii's visions were not prophecies, they were mirrors. Colonel Cassian Veyth disagreed. He'd come to burn the mirrors. Their first meeting was a collision of purpose. She saw patterns. He saw threats. She spoke of redemption. He spoke of collateral. Between them, the embassy pulsed, a silent arbiter. On the seventh night, the militants came. Their bullets bounced off the embassy's skin, but their message was clear. Humanity feared what it could not control. Cassian fought them with a soldier's precision. Lysandra watched, her mind dissecting the violence. Not random, never random, until the embassy itself intervened. The dreams changed after that. No longer just collapse but choice. A hand offered, a path forked. Lysandra understood first. The Aetherii were not conquerors. They were confessors. Cassian resisted. Redemption was a lie. He'd learned that in the trenches, where choices were bullets, and every shot left a ghost. But the embassy's hum softened, became a question. What will you become? The answer, when it came, would cost them both. Chapter 1. The embassy rose from the Sahara, like a shard of frozen lightning. Cassian Veyth stood at the perimeter, his boots sinking into dunes that had not shifted in centuries. The structure defied physics, angles that shouldn't hold, surfaces that drank the sun, and spat it back as cobalt glare. It hummed, a subsonic thrum that lodged in his molars. A fucking aesthetic, he thought. They build a cathedral to their own superiority. His comms unit crackled. "Veyth, report." General Hargrove's voice, all gravel and impatience. Cassian didn't look away from the embassy. Structure stable, no visible ingress. They're waiting. For what? He didn't answer. The Aetherii had arrived 3 weeks prior, their vessel a black splotch on radar that dissolved into the atmosphere like smoke. No demands, no first contact protocols. Just this, a monolith planted in the sand, and the dreams. Dreams that showed cities collapsing into geometric decay, oceans boiling into glass. Dreams that left world leaders trembling in underground bunkers. Cassian had seen the footage. A child's hand, pale and speckled with static, dissolving into ash. A voiceover in 1,000 languages. "This is what you will become." "Colonel?" Hargrove again. "They're waiting for her," Cassian said. The psychologist, the one who'd written papers on guilt as a collective hallucination. He'd read her file. Lysandra Kyr, 34, orphaned in the Balkan reclamation, a decade parsing trauma for the UN's Crisis Corps. Her thesis had been a footnote in his briefing, Survivors' Guilt in Post-Conflict Zones, a cognitive framework, useless, as far as he was concerned. A jeep kicked up sand half a click away. Cassian didn't move. He'd learned stillness in the trenches of Tharsis, how to let the world come to him. The vehicle stopped. A woman stepped out, her silhouette sharp against the sun. She wore a field jacket 2 sizes too big, and carried a satchel that looked older than the war. "Dr. Kyr," he said, turning. She didn't flinch at his approach, though his scars usually made civilians hesitate. Acid burns, courtesy of a Martian insurgent's lucky shot. Her eyes, gray as the static in the dreams, narrowed. "Colonel Veyth, you're early. Punctuality's a tactical advantage, or a compulsion." She brushed past him, closer to the embassy. Her fingers twitched, as if she itched to touch the alien alloy. They've been projecting for 72 hours. 14 subjects in the dream state. All report the same sequence collapse. Then a hand. A child's. Cassian's jaw tightened. The Tharsis op. A schoolhouse. A wrong turn. He'd replayed it 1,000 times. Could have been a kid's hand in that footage. Not a prophecy, she said. Too softly. A lesson, he snorted. You think they're teaching us? You don't? The embassy pulsed. A sound like ice cracking. Cassian's hand drifted to his sidearm. They've killed 3 security teams. Lessons don't come with body counts. They've killed no one, she said. Sharp now. The teams walked into live fire zones. Panic. Bad intel. She stepped closer, close enough he could see the scar on her thumb. A straight, precise line. Surgical. You're here because you see threats. I'm here because I see patterns. Try not to confuse them. Before he could respond, the air shivered. The embassy's surface rippled, then split, a vertical gash widening into a door. No light escaped the gap, only a cold pulling sensation, like the moment before a storm. Lysandra didn't wait for orders. She walked toward the darkness. Cassian followed, because duty was a leash, and because the static in his molars had become a scream. Mine. Inside, the embassy was a labyrinth of negative space. Walls bent inward. Ceilings folded into floors. Cassian's HUD failed. His night vision goggles rendered the void as a sickly green smear. Lysandra navigated by touch, her palms grazing surfaces that hummed under her skin. The air smelled like burnt sugar and lithium. They're curating this, she whispered. A sensory primer, or a trap. Cassian's rifle swept the dark. Then why guide us deeper? He had no answer. They turned a corner, or what passed for a corner in this place, and the world dissolved. Cassian hit the ground hard. Not sand, not metal, something between flesh and circuitry. The sky was a tessellation of human teeth. Lysandra stood a meter away, her satchel gone, her hands balled into fists. Where's the child? She said. He didn't ask how she knew. The dreams had rules. He'd seen the footage. A shape coalesced. A boy, maybe 6, standing at the edge of a crumbling plaza. His skin was translucent, veins glowing like fiber optics. Cassian's finger tightened on the trigger. Not real, not real. The boy raised a hand. The plaza collapsed. Lysandra moved before Cassian could process. She sprinted toward the boy, dodging debris that defied gravity, chunks of concrete floating upward, glass shards spinning into fractals. Cassian followed. Because orders or not, he'd never left a civilian. Get back, he shouted. She ignored him, reached the boy, touched his shoulder. The world snapped. Cassian woke gasping, sand in his mouth. The embassy loomed, unchanged. Lysandra knelt beside him, her face streaked with blood, a gash on her temple. You idiot, he said. You don't touch the subjects in the dreams. Subjects. She wiped the blood with the back of her hand. He was terrified. Not of the collapse. Of being forgotten. Cassian stood, scanning the horizon. The sun was lower. They'd been under for hours. Your diagnosis, they're guilt-ridden. Suicidal. Survivors, she corrected. Like us. He froze. She couldn't know. No one did. The Tharsis op was classified. But her eyes were on his scars. You keep tally, don't you? Every life you couldn't save. A roar cut the air. Not the embassy. Jets. Cassian's HUD flickered to life. 6 bogies. Inbound. Take cover. Lysandra stared at the live feed in the command tent. The embassy's exterior flickered under cannon fire. Cassian's team returned fire, but the militants, unmarked, untraceable, kept advancing. They want the tech, she muttered. The dream interface. Beside her Hargrove swore. Veyth pinned down. We lose that embassy, we lose the Aetherii. Lysandra grabbed a rifle from the armory. Then we don't lose it. Hargrove blocked her path. You're a civilian, and you're losing soldiers. Let me help. The general hesitated, then nodded. The battlefield was chaos. Cassian reloaded behind a sandbag wall. 3 men down. The militants wore exo armor, military grade, not a ragtag crew. A message then. Someone wanted the embassy destroyed. A grenade landed at his feet. Time slowed. He recognized the make. A Ursa 9. 5-second fuse. But the blast never came. Lysandra stood 10 meters away, the grenade in her hand. She'd caught it mid-air. Her eyes met his. Run. And she hurled it into the embassy's shadow. The explosion shook the dunes. Cassian's ears rang. She was already moving, firing precise bursts into the militant's flank. No hesitation, no fear. Who the hell are you? He thought. She reached him, tossed him a fresh mag. Fall back to the eastern ridge. I'll cover. He hesitated. Orders warred with instinct. Go, she said. Or we both die for nothing. He went. They regrouped in the embassy's heart. A chamber of floating prisms, each reflecting a fragment of the battle outside. Lysandra's hands danced over a console, alien symbols blooming under her touch. EMP sequence, she said. Disable their suits. Cassian covered her, picking off militants through the embassy's translucent walls. How do you know this tech? I don't. I'm guessing. A bullet grazed her arm. She didn't flinch. The console lit up. The prisms dimmed. Outside, exo armor seized mid-stride. Cassian's calm crackled. Threat neutralized. Stand down. Silence fell. Lysandra slumped against the console, blood pooling on the alien floor. Cassian holstered his rifle. Why'd you do it? He asked. The grenade. She laughed. Weak. Survival math. 2 dead beats 1. Bullshit. Her eyes closed. You'd have done the same. He didn't argue. Lysandra woke to the smell of antiseptic, and Cassian's voice. Unknown if the militants were state-sponsored. Could be corporate. Could be. Fear. She said. Throat raw. Whoever they are, they're terrified of the Aetheries' message. Cassian turned. His burns were freshly dressed. The scars less livid under the medbay lights. You're not wrong. She sat up, ignoring the dizziness. The dreams aren't prophecies. They're choices. The Aetherii are showing us what they became, what we could become. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. And you believe them? I believe guilt looks the same across species. They held each other's gaze. Cassian thought of Tharsis, the schoolhouse, the choices he hadn't made. Lysandra touched her bandaged arm. You're bleeding. He glanced at his sleeve, torn and bloodied, superficial. Still, she gestured to the medbay supplies. Sit. He hesitated, then complied. She cleaned the wound in silence, her touch clinical but not cold, the kind of care that came from practice, not pity. You ever wonder, she said, what they dream about? The Aetherii. Doesn't matter. They're tools. We use their tech. We move on. She tied off the bandage. You don't really believe that? He didn't answer. Outside, the embassy pulsed. A slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, or a warning. Chapter 2. The embassy's core throbbed like a wounded artery. Cassian watched Lysandra from the medbay doorway. She'd refused sedatives, now hunched over a stolen militant datapad, her fingers tracing lines of code as if reading entrails. The screen's glow deepened the shadows under her eyes. Hilt had a texture, he realized, brittle, like glass about to shatter. He'd seen it before. Tharsis, soldiers who survived when their squads didn't. They'd scrubbed their armor raw, as if blood could be erased. Lysandra looked up. You're staring, noticing. He entered, dropping a ration bar on the desk. Eat. She didn't touch it. The militants were after the dream interface. Someone leaked its location. Hargrove's hunting moles. And you? He leaned against the wall, careful not to jar his bandaged arm. I follow orders, even if they're wrong. The question hung. Outside, the embassy's hum shifted pitch, a dissonant chord that made his fillings ache. 3 days passed in a blur of static and sweat. The Aetherii's dreams grew denser, layered. Cassian learned to navigate them by rote. The toothed sky, the fractal debris, the boy with fiber optic veins. Lysandra called him an anchor, a recurring element in the visions. She spent hours in the core, interfacing with the aliens' tech, her face lit by cryptic symbols. Cassian monitored her vitals, heart rate, elevated, brain activity, off the charts. She'd collapse after each session, muttering about echoes and survivors' calculus. He'd drag her to the cot, force hydration. Their conversations were sparse, tactical. The Aetherii didn't survive their collapse, she said once, voice slurred with exhaustion. They transcended, became something else. The dreams are their autopsy. Poetic, Cassian grunted. Truthful, she passed out. The general's order came at 0300. Cassian read it 3 times. The words dissolving into the embassy's glow. Terminate the interface. Extract Kyr. Destroy the site. His fist crumpled the tablet. Lysandra found him in the armory, repacking his kit. You're restless. Prepared. For what? He hesitated. The lie tasted metallic. Relocation. She studied him. You're a terrible liar, Colonel, says the woman who won't sleep. Toche. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. They want to bomb the embassy. He froze. Your orders, she clarified. Hargrove's not subtle. He sent a second team. Paratroopers. ETA 6 hours. Cassian's mind raced. How much does she know? Don't, she said. I've decrypted their comms. You're to kill me if I resist. The silence was a live wire. Cassian focused on his kit. Ammo. Grenades. A syringe of sedative. Orders change. Do they? She stepped closer. Or do you? He met her gaze. The scar on her thumb twitched. What's your play, Doctor? Same as yours. Survival. But not theirs. She nodded at the embassy. The Aetherii aren't a weapon. They're a warning. A chance. To trust aliens who've shown us nothing but nightmares. To trust we're worth saving. The room seemed to tilt. Cassian thought of Tharsis again. The schoolhouse doors. The heat of the blast. The choices he hadn't made. Lysandra touched his arm. You don't have to outrun your past, Cassian. Just walk beside it. They moved through the embassy's lower levels at dawn. The walls here pulsed with bioluminescent veins, casting the corridor in blues and violets. Lysandra led, her satchel heavy with alien tech. Cassian followed, rifle raised, hyper-aware of the timer ticking in his head. 5 hours until the paratroopers land. This way, she said, pressing a palm to a wall. It dissolved, revealing a chamber filled with floating prisms. Each reflected a different scene. A melting glacier, a riot, a child's empty bed. Their memories, Lysandra whispered. Not visions, memories. Cassian scanned the room. No hostiles, no exit. What's the endgame? She didn't answer. Instead, she activated the interface. A wrist-mounted device cobbled from Aetherii shards. The prism stilled, then projected a new image. A planet-wide network of cities, connected by threads of light. Earth. Their final lesson, she said. Connection. They didn't die. They merged. Bullshit. Is it? She tapped the interface. The projection shifted. A human figure, glowing, dissolving into the network. They're offering symbiosis, a way to avoid their fate. Cassian's comms crackled. Hargrove. Status? He cut the feed. Lysandra smiled. Faint. You just bought us 4 hours. The desert night swallowed them. Cassian drove a stolen transport. Lysandra navigating by starlight. An Aetherii tech. They were 30 clicks out when the first missile struck the embassy. The explosion lit the sky. A supernova of blue and white. Lysandra flinched. They're too late. Hargrove. The Aetherii. They've already chosen. Cassian gripped the wheel. To do what? Wait. Myatt. They reached the shoreline at first light. The ocean roiled. Waves clawing at the sand. Lysandra waded in. The interface glowing in her hand. Cassian followed. Rifle slung.
as she submerged to her waist. "Here," she said. "The signal's strongest." "What signal?" She didn't answer. The interface pulsed. The water stilled. Then movement. Shapes beneath the surface. Bioluminescent and serpentine. Cassian raised his rifle, but Lysandra caught his arm. "Watch." The shapes coalesced. A school of fish, their scales shimmering with alien glyphs. They swam in perfect sync, forming and reforming patterns. A tree, a face, a hand reaching. "The Aetherii," Lysandra said. "They're everywhere, in everything." Cassian's throat tightened. "And the dreams?" "A dialogue. They're asking if we're ready to join the conversation." The paratroopers found them at midday. Cassian took out two, before Lysandra disarmed him. "Stand down," Hargrove barked, flanked by a dozen soldiers. Lysandra stepped forward, interface raised. "It's not a weapon." "Then what is it?" "A mirror." She activated the device. The beach dissolved. Hargrove stood in a field of black vines, their thorns dripping with static. Lysandra and Cassian faced him, their forms flickering, half human, half Aetherii. "You see the truth now," Lysandra said. "The collapse isn't inevitable, it's a choice." Hargrove, rifle trembled. "Bullshit. You're compromised." Cassian stepped closer. "You want to save humanity, start by trusting it." The vines receded. The general's mask cracked. Hargrove lowered his weapon. The paratroopers stood down. Lysandra handed him the interface. "Your move, General." He stared at it, then at the ocean, where the Aetherii fish still swam, glowing. Cassian touched Lysandra's shoulder. "You knew that you'd choose duty." "No." She smiled, weary. "I hoped you'd choose us." The sun dipped below the horizon. The embassy's ruins smoldered in the distance. Cassian took her hand. "What now?" "We wait," she said, "for the choice to become a promise." And in the silence, the ocean whispered. Chapter 3. The shore smelled of ozone and endings. Cassian watched Hargrove stare at the interface. The general's reflection fractured in the waves. The Aetherii's fish schools darted beneath the surface, their glyphs flickering like submerged stars. Lysandra's voice cut the silence. "It's not a weapon." Hargrove, rifle dipped. "Then what?" "A conversation." She stepped forward, water lapping at her boots. "They're offering a partnership, a way to avoid their mistakes." Cassian's hand hovered near his holstered sidearm. One signal, one word, but the general's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him like tide. "Orders are orders," Hargrove muttered. "Orders are choices," Lysandra countered. The paratroopers shifted, uneasy. Cassian recognized the look, the moment before a squad fractures. Loyalty versus survival. Hargrove sighed. "Stand down." The soldiers lowered their weapons. Night fell in the desert. Cassian and Lysandra sat on a dune overlooking the embassy's ruins, the wreckage still glowing cobalt. She'd refused medical evac, opting instead for a stolen medkit and silence. Now, she traced patterns in the sand. A child's hand, a collapsing spire. "You knew Hargrove wouldn't fire," Cassian said. "I hoped." He grunted. "Hope's a liability. Or a lever." She glanced at him. "Like you." The wind picked up, carrying the tang of burnt metal. Cassian thought of the Tharsis op again. The schoolhouse, the screams, the choices that haunted him. Could have been her patient, could have been that boy. "Why'd you stay?" he asked. "After the grenade. The interface. You could have left." She smiled. Faint. "Survival math. Bullshit. Truth." Her eyes on the horizon. "You're not the only one who keeps tally." The Aetherii's final dream came at dawn. Cassian felt it before seeing it. The static in his molars, the pull in his chest. Lysandra woke with a start, her hand finding his. "No more running," she said. They entered the embassy's core. As the sun crested the dunes, the chamber had transformed, a nexus of light and shadow. The prisms now reflecting not collapse, but growth. Cities rebuilt, oceans teeming, a child's laughter echoing. "Their answer," Lysandra whispered. Cassian's scars itched. To what? The question we didn't ask. Are we worth saving? A shape coalesced. A figure, neither human nor Aetherii, but something between. It reached out, and Cassian felt the weight of millennia, the guilt of a species that had burned its world to ash. Lysandra stepped forward. We accept. The figure dissolved. The embassy shuddered. Nye sighed. The structure began to collapse, not violently, but gracefully. Walls folding into floors, angles dissolving into light. Hargrove's troops retreated, but Cassian stood his ground. Lysandra grabbed his arm. Move. He didn't. Not yet. The embassy imploded. A supernova of blue light. When it faded, nothing remained but sand and silence. Lysandra stared at the emptiness. They're gone. No, Cassian said. They're here. He gestured to the dunes, where the Aetheries' fish schools now swam in the air, glyphs mapping the wind. Years passed in the space of a breath. Cassian stood on a new shore, Earth's coastline, rebuilt. The Aetheries' influence was subtle, crops that grew in salt water, cities powered by dreams. Lysandra's work had become legend, her theories the foundation of a new alliance. He found her at the water's edge, gray streaking her hair, her eyes still gray as static. You were right, he said. The choice was the prophecy. She smiled. Our choice, the waves whispered, and in their rhythm, Cassian heard the Aetheries' final message. This is what you chose to become. They buried Hargrove in the Sahara, beside the embassy's footprint. The general's last order had been to stand down, to trust. Cassian saluted. Lysandra placed a stone on the grave. No words, just the wind. That night, in their quarters, Lysandra traced the scars on Cassian's arm. Still tallying, he covered her hand with his. No, just remembering. The static in his molars had faded. The Aetheries' hum replaced by something softer. Her breath, the creak of floorboards, the quiet calculus of a life chosen, not endured. Outside, the stars burned, unafraid.